What's up everyone, it's me Lone, I hope you're doing alright. Starfield's latest PC update is finally here. It was in beta on Steam for a little bit, but now it's officially released, and today I'm going to be taking you through all the patch notes and telling you everything you need to know. But quickly before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to Elgato. They sent me their Elgato prompter device, and it's been an absolute game changer for me making videos on the channel. You might have noticed in my last couple of videos, I don't need to look to the right anymore to have a look at my notes on my screen. Now everything is in front of me, so I can talk directly to the camera without needing to look away. It's just awesome. Thank you to Elgato for sending me this product, and they did send it to me for free, so hashtag ad, hashtag sponsored. So with that all out of the way, let's get to the patch notes for Starfield Update 1.8.86, of course released on the 20th of November 2023. So we're going to start off talking about DLSS. I've talked about this a fair bit in my previous videos, but I'm going to cover it now just in case you don't know. Yes, this is the long-awaited update that introduces NVIDIA DLSS to PC. It's been a game changer. Like if you look at Digital Foundry's video on the matter, it's a huge improvement over FSR2, especially when it comes to image stability and also anti-aliasing. And importantly, it's just as good as the community DLSS mod. Yes, we have to say that it took a while for it to get into our hands, but it is here and it's running really well. So if you want to utilize DLSS, DLAA, NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency, and the big one, one of the big ones at least, DLSS frame generation, you'll be able to do so if you have the required NVIDIA card. I would say as well, frame generation is particularly huge, and there are certain cities I would go to test out to see how much improved DLSS is for you. In particular, Aquila City is a big one. So go to Aquila City, see what it's like with FSR2, and then swap to, DLSS. You will notice a bit of a difference. You will notice your frame rates shoot right up, especially if you're using frame generation. If you have frame generation, you can't have VSync on, unfortunately. It's just the way that it goes. But you can get some incredibly high frame rates. The only thing, especially if you're running a 1080p monitor or maybe a 1440p monitor, you might notice there is a new cap of a frame rate of about 165 to 167 frames per second. Apparently that's the new frame rate cap in Starfield, and people only really noticed it because of the addition of frame generation. So if you do care, if you do have a 244 hertz monitor, or God forbid above that, you might not be able to get frame rates above that. But if you're only running it like a 4K 60, you're not even going to notice. And for me, all it's doing is absolutely ensuring that at max settings, at ultra everything, and at 4K, you're rarely dropping below 60, especially because of all the CPU and GPU upgrades that they've made, and I'll cover those in a second. So the next update that we have to talk about is Let Them Eat. By popular request, we have added, and we as Bethesda Game Studios, we have added the ability to ingest food and drink items upon finding them in the environment. You can enjoy those chunks immediately or save them for later. The choice is yours. This was like such an important quality of life addition because no one was going back through your inventory and eating all the food and drink items. Mainly because most of them aren't that good anyways. So it's just a waste of time. You're probably going to sell them later. But now that you can just quickly eat them on the go or drink them on the go, really nice quality of life update. So thank you to Bethesda for this. But I will say, I think those food items, with all the attention that you put into it, with how they look on the screen and how the physics operate and all that, and how many different food and drink items that you have in the game, give us a little bit more health. Give us some more benefits when we're eating and drinking. That's all I'll say, but at the very least, you can eat it and drink it on the go now. So now we're talking about more general fixes and improvements. So performance and stability. Honestly, this is the biggest part of this update, and hopefully a lot of you on PC will notice this. So the first one is them addressing a number of memory-related issues and leaks. They also added some GPU performance optimizations, which are going to be more impactful on higher-end cards. I want to stop here to talk about this because if you have an AMD card, you might not notice as much of an improvement. You will notice a little bit. It's really if you have an NVIDIA card, in particular, if you have a high-end NVIDIA card. So anywhere from an RTX 3080 and above. But honestly, I would say anyone that has an NVIDIA card, you should really notice an improvement to frame rate. What they've really done is narrowed the gap between how well an AMD card performs to its NVIDIA equivalent. NVIDIA owners were you weren't experiencing the most optimized game at launch, and it's probably related to the AMD partnership, even though there wasn't something strictly in place that said, obviously, NVIDIA has to be worse than AMD. Bethesda Game Studios will never do that. But it's clear they gave a little bit more love to AMD over NVIDIA, and now NVIDIA is finally catching up. So if you do have an NVIDIA card, in particular a more higher end NVIDIA card, you should notice a nice little boost to your frame rate. And that is aside from DLSS and frame generation. So that is really, really good to see. The next note that we have to talk about is CPU performance, right? So they have improved renderer threading for the CPU performance, and in particular, it's improved CPU usage, most notably, again, on higher end systems. Digital Foundry did say that CPUs across the board have been improved, but in particular, what you're going to notice is an improvement to CPU utilization. So again, in cities like Aquila, you should go to Aquila and see how much improved your frame rate is now because of this improvement to CPU utilization. It is really good to see. Again, it calls into question how optimized Starfield was at launch when it comes to CPUs. But again, if you have a high-end CPU, you should notice a nice boost to your frame rate. And I would say most of you, if not all of you, should get a pretty stable frame rate experience, hopefully mostly at 60 frames per second at least, especially if you have a mid to high range PC. So that is good to see. CPU performance, GPU performance, and DLSS, Starfield's running the best that it ever has. So if you're ever going to do a brand new playthrough, now's actually a decent time to do so. And finally, when it comes to general fixes, yes, they've added various stability and performance improvements. So all around, a good patch. Some people would argue that they should have added a lot of this stuff earlier, but the fact is it's here, so let's enjoy it while it is, right? Now let's talk about some gameplay additions that they've added to the game. So again, they've affected some stuff when it comes to food. The first one is adding the ability to eat food placed in the world, which is great. Also as well, they've adjusted stealth to be a little bit more forgiving. I would say that was needed, but I honestly don't know how viable stealth builds are in Starfield compared to something like Skyrim. I rarely see people doing stealth builds, so let me know in the comments below if you actually find a big benefit to stealth builds, but I just never got into it. Never got into stealth, never got into melee or unarmed, so let me know if you think it's actually worthwhile. But next, they fixed some more very specific things. So they fixed an issue where apparently Andreas's head will stay permanently cloaked, so obviously you don't want that to happen. They fixed an issue that could prevent players from firing their weapons, clearly a big bug. They fixed issues where some NPCs could not be seen wearing clothes, and this issue might have to resolve itself over time. I never experienced that. Actually, no, that's a lie. I experienced that once, I think, in my big playthrough when I reviewed the game. They also fixed an issue where already in progress skill challenges could stop progressing after reaching the Unity and starting a new game, which is good. They also fixed another issue that could temporarily prevent the opening of the inventory or saving after entering the Unity. So the Unity seems to have caused a few problems, and I also know there's a bunch of problems in New Game Plus as well. Maybe I'll make a separate video about that. But the Unity is causing all kinds of problems. Hopefully a lot of those issues are now resolved. Specifically on PC, they fixed an issue where mouse movement could be choppy. They fixed a rare issue that could apparently cause the home ship to be lost. I saw a lot of people complaining about this on Reddit. Hopefully this fix resolves it because that's a big important thing. They also fixed an issue where the ship services technician might be missing. I never experienced that. And the last one is them fixing an issue where occasionally the camera could shake incorrectly during traveling, jumping, docking, and landing transitions. Again, I never experienced that, but all around, those are pretty good fixes to be had in the game. And I'm still going. Like, I just want to pause right now to say, it is nice to see an update this big. I was definitely one of the people complaining that the previous updates that we got were small. They were tiny. They barely did anything. This is actually the first substantial update that we've seen to Starfield, addressing a bunch of stuff across performance, across graphics, across everything. So kudos Bethesda, please keep doing this. They still have 250 people apparently working on the game, according to Todd Howard. So if we keep seeing improvements like this, and then eventually the modding tools are out, again, I'm going to keep saying it, I think the future of Starfield is bright. But let's get back to the patch notes. So specifically about graphics, they address an issue with how ambient occlusion appeared in ultra-wide resolutions. Good thing that they're focusing on ultra-wide, right? Like, I think ultra-wide wasn't a thing when the game first came out, but now they're finally focusing on it a little bit, so good on them. They've also optimized initial shader compilation that occurs on startup. They added the ability to adjust brightness and contrast in the display settings menu. That's simple, should go without saying, and I will say this, all right? And Digital Foundry has complained about this too. Bethesda Game Studios, I think, really need to modernize their in-game settings menus. They absolutely have to. They need to add especially comparison images to show us what the hell is changing, because sometimes I'm pretty well versed in PC settings and graphics and everything. I don't know what is changing what, right? Like, you can change a setting and then go back into the game and you don't really know what's actually changing. The developer that I think does this brilliantly is Ubisoft. Ubisoft does this awesome with Assassin's Creed in particular. You can see when you change something, what it actually changes, to see if it's worthwhile. They tell you how much VRAM this particular change is making to your graphics card. I think Bethesda Game Studios does need to get with the times when it comes to everything in-game settings and update it. Tell us what's changing, tell us how much VRAM every change is making, because every other developer nowadays is just well beyond them when it comes to this. I love you, Bethesda, but please do this for Starfield, okay? And all your games moving forward. So next up, we have the ability to adjust HDR brightness provided that the system supports it. Xbox and Windows 11 only. Apparently, HDR brightness does not look good in Starfield, and the community HDR mod is better. So, if for whatever reason you're not upgrading to this update, and you probably should still, even though the HDR controls are pretty crap, I would say that give the HDR community mod a go. I don't know if the HDR community mod can be installed over the official implementation, because the Luma mod apparently is much better. So I would give that a go, because I think HDR using the official implementation looks flat. I saw some banding on the Digital Foundry video. It just doesn't look good at all. The next update that we have is them addressing a number of materials that could sometimes present an unintended pattern occurring under certain conditions. Whatever the hell that means, I have no idea. They fixed various visual issues related to the new FOV slider options, which have been nice. They improved the appearance of the eyes on crowd characters. I suspect that they're talking about the ones where the eyes are like this, and the characters are kind of like looking at you, like, what the hell are you staring at? Hopefully that's the issue that they fix, because that is a weird one. The next one is them addressing a number of minor visual issues related to lighting, shadows, terrain, and vegetation. And then specifically, PC addressed additional visual issues related to DLSS. I don't know what that means, because maybe that is addressing visual issues that they saw in DLSS in the beta on Steam, because they did say in these patch notes they were incorporating people's feedback after the Steam beta. So maybe they saw these visual issues and thought they needed to improve some things. I hope that's what it means. But yeah, it looks like DLSS is looking really good on Starfield, but FSR2 still has some issues. And I think those of you on AMD cards, hopefully you see those improvements, because ghosting is still a big issue with FSR2, for instance. So now let's get into some quest improvements that they've made. I'll speed through this. So all that money can buy, they fixed a rare issue where players couldn't sit during the negotiation with Musgrove. The Blastloan quest, they fixed an issue where the hard rocks that need to be cleared out by players would not appear. The Echoes of the Past quest, they fixed an issue where the Griloba Queen could sometimes not be reachable during the objective Secure the Shuttle Bay. In the Eye of the Storm quest, they fixed an issue where players' quest progression could potentially be blocked due to a missing docking prompt. The Grunt Work quest, they addressed an issue where progress could appear to be blocked if Super Ed Ultra was completed while returning to the lodge during high price to pay. And that's a good thing, because everyone's finished Super Ultra, right? It is one of the important faction quest lines in the game. So good thing that they fixed that. The quest line, No Sudden Moves. They fixed an issue that could prevent the entrance door to the Scow ship from being opened again. And then Operation Starseed, they fixed an issue where the key that is needed to exit the facility could sometimes not be present. Sabotage, they fixed an issue. I'm still going, I'm running out of breath. Fixed an issue where David Barron could potentially not be found by players. The Short-Sighted quest, they fixed an issue where players could rarely become control locked while speaking with Vladimir. And then finally, the Heart of Mars, they fixed an issue where players were not able to mine something. It's cut off. I accidentally forgot to include all the patch notes, but that's where we are. We have gone through all the patch notes for the latest Starfield update on PC. Let me know what you think about this, Wastelanders, in the comments below. For me, I will take the time to say, this is a great update. I think this is a good update. I think a lot of things have come a little bit too late. We have seen a drop off to Starfield's player count, but hopefully updates like this and then eventually modding tools are going to bring people back. I do think that will happen, and I do think that will happen, especially when the first DLC comes. It's important that a lot of these big issues and a lot of these quality of life updates like FOV, DLSS, eating food and drink, all that stuff needs to be dropped and implemented and before the actual DLC comes out, whether it's Shattered Space or whatever it is. All these fixes are really important, because if people come back to the game and there's all these other issues and people still don't have DLSS and all that, it's going to be a bad experience, and it's really going to undermine the future of the game. But now that these big updates are coming, and then we see the DLC, I think the future of Starfield is bright. But let me know what you think in the comments below. And until next time, this has been Alone. Please take care of yourselves, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.